Canby. Welcome to the May 5th, 2021 City Council regular meeting. I will call things to order. We've been pretty busy already this evening with a urban renewal work session and exec session. And so we'll get right into things this evening. First on the agenda is citizen input and community announcements. So this is an opportunity for audience members or citizens to come address the City Council on items that are not on the agenda. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. Staff and the City Council will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizen input before the meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. If you're here to speak on an agenda item, we will let you speak at that time when that comes up in the agenda. If you're watching this and you would like to come and address the council virtually or in person, please email or call the city recorder by 7 p.m. on the day of our meeting. So in this case, 7 o'clock today, with your name, the topic you'd like to speak on, and your contact information. So that would be, our city recorder would be bissettem@canbyoregon.gov. Once your information is received, you will be sent instructions on how to connect and have your time to speak. Please note that council will be attending right now. Our meetings are still virtual for a little bit longer. Melissa, do we have anybody for non-agenda items?
We do not.
Thank you. Next on the agenda then is the consent agenda. So,
Mr. Mayor, I approve. Oh, hold on. My screen just went blank. Hold on. I apologize. Technology. They say it's our friend. I beg to differ. I move to approve the consent agenda. I'm waiting to see what it says. Hold on. Oh, I hate my phone right now.
May I help out, Tracy?
yes.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bangs. I cannot see it, so I was going to move to approve the consent agenda, but I wanted to dictate what it was. So if you have it in front of you, please, by all means, help me out.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, Tracy moves to accept the consent agenda, including the approval of minutes from the April 7th, 2021 meeting and the OLCC applications for full on-premises commercial licenses for Wayward Hospitality located at 136 North Grant Street.
And I will
second.
Thank you, Councilor Banks.
So the motion's been made by Councilor Bangs and seconded. I'll give the second to Council President Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes of the April 7th, 2021 City Council work session and City Council regular meeting, and an OLCC application for a full-on premises commercial license for Wayward Hospitality LLC, trade name of Siren Song, located at 136 North Grant Street. Any discussion or question? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you all. Next on the agenda this evening is resolution to consider resolution number 1347, resolution in favor of businesses and citizens, civil liberties, against any more shutdowns or necessary restrictions. I'm going to take a moment and read the resolution. So those that are viewing at home may not have seen it. The resolution states, whereas the people of the city of Canby have the rights and civil liberties afforded them by the Oregon State Constitution and the United States Constitution. And whereas COVID emergency powers have been used by the state of Oregon to restrict and limit various rights and civil liberties of businesses and individuals over the last year and 2 months, far longer than the 30 days envisioned in Section 10-A of Oregon's Constitution. And whereas the people of the city of Canby have specifically endured these state mandated restrictions and limitations against both local businesses and individual liberties for more than a year, and whereas some of the various states' restrictions on rights and civil liberties during the COVID pandemic have been held by courts to be unconstitutionally overbroad. And whereas over the course of the past year and 2 months, the people and the business operators of the city of Canby had demonstrated the ability to learn and apply safety precautions and best practices regarding COVID-19. And whereas the application of certain state mandated restrictions and limitations have disproportionately negatively impacted many businesses and citizens more than others, and whereas the people of the city of Canby are constitutionally required to have their rights and liberties restored as quickly and equally as possible. And whereas several other states of greater population and denser population centers have restored more rights and liberties without an appreciable increase in COVID-related death or hospital overruns. And whereas the state mandated limiting of certain rights and liberties have caused severe economic and other harms, including bankruptcies, exhaustion of financial resources, food, and housing insecurities to businesses and individuals in the city of Canby. And whereas the state arbitrarily allows full close quarters access to liquor stores and schools, but continues overemphasis on restricting or closing restaurants, bars, and gyms without credible statistical evidence of disease spread or prevention over the last 14 months, inflicts unwarranted systemic discrimination on those 20 plus Canby establishments, many of which employ or are owned or operated by women or persons of color, and economic insecurity. And whereas it is also well documented that prolonged social isolation, particularly among children and the elderly, coupled with the stresses of economic hardship, have caused a significant rise in domestic violence, crimes of desperation, mental health impacts, and suicide risks, perpetuated upon the citizens of Canby by the state's unreasonable and overreaching suspension of rights and liberties. And whereas any continued limitations will certainly cause even more harm to the people of the city of Canby. And now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the City Council of the City of Canby as follows. Be it resolved, the people of the City of Canby desire and deserve the rights, liberties, and respect afforded them by the constitutions of the state of Oregon and the United States of America. The rights and liberties that have been temporarily removed need to be recognized and restored to their fullest extent immediately. And this resolution shall take effect on May 5th, 2021. I just wanted to take a moment and read that piece of it. This resolution came about for a couple of reasons. First off, and I know that the governor just lifted it again yesterday afternoon, but I think that another extreme limiting of or shutdown of our businesses with barely a week notice, when our businesses were told that they would have a 2-week notice to adjust schedules and inventory, was harmful, again, to our businesses. Other cities have and are drafting similar language because of the same severe economic hardships their businesses and community are experiencing. We have had business owners have to claim bankruptcy, take out more loans, and several more close to the edge of closing. I have been vocal about these shutdowns early on, and I think we and other cities should be taking stronger action. If our county commissioners can come together on supporting our communities, certainly I believe we can as well. This is not, to me, a partisan issue or a partisan written resolution. We're saying enough with the yanking around of our businesses, their livelihoods, and the livelihoods of their employees. With vaccines and hospitalizations down and safety protocols in place, our businesses can operate their businesses within those parameters. And we should be advocating for this as a council for our business community. There are a number of emails that have come in. I believe Melissa has sent those, gathered those up and have sent those to you. I know there's a couple of people that want to speak on the behalf or speak regarding this matter. The first one I'll read, and then I'll let those that are in the gallery speak here in just a second. So one of the letters that came in that asked to be read was from Christy Bernclau Halver, and her letter reads, "Dear Mayor Hodson and Canby City Councilors, I am writing to encourage you not to pass the current resolution opposing COVID-19 restrictions. There are a number of productive roles the city government can play during a pandemic, and I've seen you doing many of them. I am grateful for the work you've done to support our businesses as they create outdoor gathering spaces. I appreciate the work of our library and city government employees to make their services accessible to us as restrictions ebb and flow based on the trajectory of the pandemic. I hope as community leaders, you are actively promoting vaccinations so we can get to a point of herd immunity and move on. Supporting local businesses, making city government services accessible, and modeling basic public health measures like vaccinations are productive, hopefully nonpartisan actions. But I don't understand how this resolution opposing the state's pandemic response on behalf of the people of the city of Canby is productive. Rather, it feels politically motivated, divisive, and non-productive. I am not writing this to defend every decision made by the state government during the pandemic, but they are balancing a host of challenging interests. An urgent threat to the lives of Oregonians, the sustainability of our healthcare system, economic well-being, social well-being, and more. As a local community, I believe our most productive roles are to help as many of us get vaccinated as possible so we can actually end the pandemic, to encourage and check in on one another during this stressful time, and to intentionally support and purchase from our local businesses, even when it needs to be done outdoors. I understand that some of my neighbors agree with the language of the resolution and are frustrated, but this expression of those frustrations doesn't accomplish anything other than shifting our city government's time and attention away from actions that would actually help. It reinforces an us/them mindset when we really need to be working together. Thank you for your consideration. Signed, Christy Bernclau Halver. Melissa, do we have people? Did we lose City Hall? Oh, no, there they are. Sorry. Melissa, do we have others that want to address us on this matter?
We do. We have two. We have Kathleen and Felix.
Great. I think Kathleen had asked first.
There we go.
Hi, Ms. Jeske. How are you?
Hi, can y'all hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, just before you get started, just as a reminder, just about keeping things to 3 minutes for us this evening, okay?
Perfect. I'm hopefully well under that.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Mayor Hodson and city councilors, thank you for letting me speak. First, I want to say that I do not agree with every single action by a long shot that's been taken by the state or federal government during the pandemic, but I also do not agree with every single whereas in this resolution. But I'm not really here to talk about which points I do and don't agree with. What I'm really here to talk about is that I don't understand why this resolution's before City Council with such short notice. It was, as far as I could tell, it was literally introduced yesterday, and it was to then be discussed at this meeting. And that really gives the impression to a lot of folks that someone who's holds certain opinions might be trying to rally up the folks who share those opinions 100% and then kind of ram those opinions through as if they represent the whole city before anyone who doesn't agree in even the slightest way has a chance to speak in opposition to any of it. That's not good government, and it is disrespectful of Canby's citizens and of democracy. I hope at the very least there would be another meeting or meetings to discuss specific language of a resolution, giving everyone time to have their say, and that maybe common agreements could be reached before any resolutions move forward. I just want to say that I have 2 adult children and I have 2 grandchildren. I have 6 siblings, and I want you to know that we do not all hold identical views on this or anything, but somehow most of us have managed to navigate our different situations and opinions and maintain at the very least civility between us, and mostly even be friendly and even continue to love one another. I really think that most of us in Canby agree on more than some of us think we do if we took the time to actually listen and discuss things. And so I'm urging the City Council not to pass this resolution in its current form without significant input as to its content. And that ends my remarks. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Jeske. I really appreciate you coming in and speaking with us this evening. And then Melissa, who do we have next?
Felix.
Great.
Hello.
Hi, Felix. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for joining us this evening. Just as, and I don't know if you heard with Ms. Jeske, if you would keep your remarks to 3 minutes, that would be great.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sure thing. Yeah. So my name is Felix Barba. I am a Canby resident here for a little more than 3 years, and I just wanted to speak in reference to this resolution here, and looking at and I was particularly moved by the latest shutdown that the governor had ordered, and that really prompted me to take action and to investigate more. Kind of the situations that has been, particularly how it affects our families, residents, businesses, and such. And in looking at that, particularly when the shutdown was announced, and then in the last 3 days, the governor kind of pulled back on that. So that, for me, that seems like that was, attempt to, push to control and to kind of push an agenda there. So I feel like this resolution is an appropriate way to reaffirm the city's commitment to support its local communities. And I also feel like I also agree with the previous speaker that there should be more time for debate and discussion. But I feel like the language, in a certain sense, doesn't go far enough. I feel like there should be, in some of the other municipalities that have had similar language, they do point to a part where they will not cooperate with attempts from the governor's attempts to overreach in the cases of these COVID-related shutdowns, which are trying to force the state and the local municipalities to comply with things that are beyond the scope and beyond the legal rights of the executive. So I would support that these resolutions not go far enough, and there should be stronger language of non-compliance with orders that overreach from the governor and state agencies. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barba. I appreciate it. Melissa, do we have any other anyone else wishing to speak, or any other emails that have come in?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. In all, at least leading up to the evening's meeting, it appears that we've received 8 emails in support of the resolution and 3 not in support of the resolution. And so some of these other ones were not necessarily asked to be read here in the meeting. So those have been sent to the council to look over, and will be in the notes package. I do want to address a couple of the comments that were just made. So to Ms. Jeske's comment about the rushed piece, I don't know if it was, yes, this piece was definitely, I would say was definitely rushed here over the weekend. And the reason being for that was because the shutdown had just occurred, and there was a number of cities that were moving towards creating a resolution. In some cases, as Mr. Barba asked, potentially stronger language than this one. And the other piece is that for me to bring this forward, I will not be at the next city council meeting, and that's why I was trying to bring this forward sooner than later to address this issue for our community. That being what it is, that's why I moved this forward as I did. To Mr. Barba's comments about stronger language or not cooperating with the governor's direction, laws, mandate, however you want to label it, that is not what I'm asking. I've never been asking that of our businesses to not follow those. One, because we can't, we shouldn't. The purpose of this is to say to the governor that this is now the fourth or fifth shutdown on many of our small mom and pop businesses, and they've been impacted. And this particular strategy isn't working. We keep continuing to have, whether that be spikes or increases in positive test results, and they're not necessarily tied to the businesses that are being shut down. And it's time for a different strategy. It's time for the businesses to function at a greater capacity, whether that be 50% or 75%, whatever that be, set it and go with it. And that's where our businesses just want a chance to succeed and live out their dreams. So that's the purpose of this, my mind's eye, when I bring this forward. I don't want the businesses to put themselves in a position to be fined for not following what the governor has directed. I'm asking the governor and the legislature, if they so be, to take a look at this and let the businesses operate to the best extent that they can. So that is my piece on this. I know that there's a number of counselors that want to weigh in, I suspect.
Well, Mr. Mayor, before we have discussion, I will move that we approve resolution number 1347, a resolution in favor of businesses and citizens' civil liberties and against any more shutdowns or unnecessary restrictions.
I will second.
I had questions for staff before that. We weren't offered an opportunity to ask staff questions.
Yes. That's fine. Let's ask whatever questions we need to ask, and then we can open it up for discussion. So, Councilor Spoon, did you have a couple of questions?
I have a series of questions, actually. So they're going to be for both Joe and Scott and some for Brian. I spent a lot of time reading through this in the limited time we were given to consider it. But if Joe could come up too, that would be really helpful for me. So some of my questions pertain to how this came to be so that I can better understand that. Some of my questions pertain to the language and staff recommendations. But Joe, were you given a resolution from Baker City by the mayor? Is that how we got here? I can't hear you, Joe. You're muted.
Yeah, that was a starting point.
Okay. And then did the mayor ask you to take that resolution and make it more Canby-esque?
Yeah.
Okay. So then I have some questions about the data in the resolution. I assume the mayor would know since it's one that he gave to you, but maybe you both know. In the ninth whereas, you say that there have been an increase in bankruptcies in Canby due to COVID, and I'm wondering how many we're talking about and how that compares to past years, bankruptcies in past years in businesses.
I wouldn't know that. That wasn't a bit of writing that I particularly did, but it's also, I'm not sure if that is from the Baker City one or if it's anecdotally from the mayor knowing personal businesses or not.
Yes, I'm aware of two businesses that have had to declare bankruptcy due to COVID pieces.
And then,
Yes, I mean, there has been a decrease from last year of bankruptcies, as I think somebody had pointed out.
38.1% decrease in
Right.
bankruptcies. Yeah, okay. So in the 11th whereas, you claim there is a well-documented significant rise in domestic violence in Canby. So I'm wondering what data is on that, where that came from, what well-documented source you're referring to, and if we can get that data too. So what was the increase in domestic violence?
If you're asking me, I did not write that, and I'm not sure what facts led to that, but I will say, I think some of this idea is that there is, I guess a mental health crisis involved in this, but again, those weren't my words.
Okay, Brian, since you submitted that, do you know what the well-documented significant rise in domestic violence in Canby is?
I will have to pull those numbers and get them back out to you guys.
Okay, but you know that there is a well-documented significant rise in domestic violence in Canby. I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Thank you. Yes, that there's been an increase in domestic violence in and around Canby and Clackamas County.
Okay.
And throughout.
I was under the impression that when we were one of the safest towns in Oregon, so I was surprised by the 11th whereas there's a well-documented significant rise in crimes of desperation in Canby. So I wonder, what crimes does the phrase crimes of desperation include, and what was the increase, and can we see the documentation that you pulled for that whereas clause?
And if you're asking me, I, again, didn't write that in. Neither did I write it, nor did I find any documentation for that.
Okay, Brian, what's included in a crime of desperation, and what was the well-documented increase, significant increase?
The crimes of desperation being burglaries, car break-ins, and other an increase in theft here in Canby and Clackamas County.
Okay, but it's the thing says all this is in Canby, and it's well documented. So what was the significant increase? I can't hear you.
I will have to pull that information and get that to you.
Okay. In my perspective, the resolution can be dangerously vague with some language. So I'm trying to determine, what do you consider limitations on our individual civil liberties, and which ones specifically are we objecting to as a council?
And if you're asking me, here's kind of the rub with this, is that it is a statement that is being made by this body if a plurality of this body votes on it.
Right. I just think it's vague. So I'm trying to figure out which ones we're talking about, because some I might agree with, some I definitely don't agree with, but I'm only going to vote in a faction that I agree. So I'm looking to Brian, I guess, since this was his resolution. What limitations on individual civil liberties are we talking about specifically objecting to?
Well, for me, when I look at this resolution, it is, have people's ability to come and go freely as they need to go, in regards to that piece, as well as being able to conduct business in a non-restrictive way.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it separates limitations on business and individual civil liberty. So is the only individual civil liberty we're objecting to the ability to come and go freely?
For me too, it's a mask requirement. That's an example for me on the matter. It's
okay. When you say in this whereas language that specifically any continued limitations will certainly cause more harm to the people of the city of Canby, are you implying that wearing masks causes harm? Because you just said you thought mask wearing was I'm just trying to figure out what we're objecting to. You think mask causes harm?
I think it does to some individuals, not everyone. And again,
Okay. What current restrictions have been held by the court to be unconstitutional and overbroad, and which courts did that?
I can answer a few of those, which there's some New York State courts that have held that Hasidic Jews were disproportionately impacted, and their freedom of assembly was held as unconstitutional. I know there was California courts that have held that some of the religious freedom of assembly was not equally applied to them as it was to other similar type activities. So I know there are multiple states that have had some of these freedom of assembly holdings that have said that there's a bit of overreach as far as the First Amendment freedom of assembly goes.
Okay. Joe and Scott, do you feel like you were given sufficient time to research the accuracy of the claims in the resolution?
Well, I would say because it's a statement that can be made or not made by you guys, that really this was something that the mayor was bringing forward in a sense of urgency because of the timing and because of the extreme level. And so I did not research the claims. I happen to know, the legal side of it much more just because I've been following that. I happen to be here at Canby as the risk manager, and then also because of the way OSHA policy had to be written earlier on, became what is known as the infection control officer as well. So I do have some working knowledge of the way things are going, but these statements in and of themselves, I think, are more, frankly, platitudes and aspirational language more than purely based on hard facts would be my assessment of the ones that you're opening up. I think it was an attempt to make a statement about if you know that people went bankrupt, that basically then there are bankruptcies happening that shouldn't have happened. And that's just my, I guess, legal personal opinion on that.
I'm talking more specifically about the claims about crime, saying that they're increased in Canby and it's well documented. And it sounded to me like you didn't have time to actually, none of these were verified, is what you're saying. None of these claims in the resolution were verified.
That is accurate. As to Canby specific, no.
Which is what the resolution says, that this is happening in Canby and these numbers are from Canby. Okay. So, Mayor, I know that you talked to Kyle from the chamber yesterday after it hit the agenda, but did you talk to the Clackamas County Business Recovery Center or Canby area or Clackamas County area chambers prior to submitting this resolution to staff?
I had not.
Okay. Joe, is there a risk that by approving this resolution, we might attract scrutiny from the Oregon Health Authority or OSHA to our businesses who have already struggled greatly over the last 14 months?
Well, I would say I could give kind of a short answer, but maybe a brief explanation is that there would be potential, I guess, for that in that because it's come close in time, this particular language, I think, is less than, say, the Baker City one. And the Baker City one is saying, we're not going to follow any rules. And I think that would be a direct invitation to have inspections. This one, because it's close in time to something that was aggressive and against the governor, she might also then say, why don't you go down to Canby too? So, but I'm not sure.
Right.
I mean, that's just speculating.
But a possible risk to our businesses by approving this, that it would bring some extra scrutiny to them. Okay. I am curious what staff's recommendation on this particular item is, both Joe and Scott.
Well, I'll speak to that first. Councilor, since this was not a staff initiated resolution, I don't have a staff recommendation. I view this in this particular case as assisting the mayor to put forth something on the agenda that he'd requested. And I think speaking, for Mr. Lindsay and myself, our job is exactly what is, taking place right now, which is to help answer any questions, either technical or legal, but not per se have a recommendation of a position to the council. And I'll let Joker speak for himself.
Well, and I would say just, I'm more comfortable at least with the language here that it doesn't say that we're going to not follow the law. I always want to make sure that you guys are staying lawful. And so it's not calling for lawlessness. And beyond that, then it is, I can say, well, it's not against the law. So it's within your guys' purview, although it's not the usual business of the city to make statements. It isn't. Historically, you guys have made statements, and also you have within your rights to make statements as a body. So it is within the confines of your legal rights to make statements as a body. And I guess you guys have to figure out what those statements are. I don't want to actually speak for you because it inserts myself into a situation where I think this is not only pretty split, but I think my role, I try to be an advisor as to what's legal and then let you guys make the policy decisions. So in this case, I will.
I guess my question would be, if you think that it's possible that approving this could bring some undue scrutiny to our businesses, that's a possibility, especially if we get tied to other communities that are using even stronger language. What would you advise us to do? I mean, is there a potential risk that we have caused undue harm to businesses by passing it if they get inspected in the coming days? Or would you, what would your advice be? Not necessarily that in general, but overall, knowing that it could cause potential scrutiny, would you advise us as our city attorney to move in this direction?
Well, I would definitely advise against something like what Baker City did. This is close enough in the gray, as it were, that it is up to you guys whether or not you want to make such a statement. That's kind of where I would be comfortable saying, because you guys are, the political policymakers, and so therefore I'll let you guys make your statements. And those arguments, you're making them now and are part of that conversation that this body needs to make. So.
Okay, well, I guess that's all my questions for staff. I'll have a statement later when we get to discussion, but I think my questions were answered.
Lower your hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Spoon. Councilor Bangs.
Thank you. I also have some questions, mostly for you, Mr. Mayor, but I think perhaps staff can answer the first one here. How much time has city staff devoted to this particular resolution already?
If you add this time now, we're probably coming closer to 2 hours.
Thank you. I want to apologize for wearing glasses, but I can't read without them. It looks like I have laser eyes, but I can't avoid that. So, Mr. Mayor, 7 times it refers to these rights and civil liberties and addresses in the first whereas the Oregon State Constitution and the United States Constitution. I've read these documents. I don't know if you have. People's ability to come and go and shop is not one of our civil liberties. Our ability to go to restaurants, to go to school, that's not a civil liberty. That is not protected by the United States Constitution or the state of Oregon's Constitution. Shopping, it's just not there. And so this is 7 times. And I think we need to know a little bit more. What are you talking about when you're talking about civil liberties? Civil liberties are also called civil rights embedded in the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. That's like the right to bear arms, the freedom of speech. So those things have not been curtailed any. So what are you talking about?
Well, it's also called out for us for the pursuit of happiness, in the Declaration of Independence. And so when we're locking down our communities and businesses and whatnot, that inhibits that for those that want to make the choice to go and do those things.
Okay, thank you. The Declaration of Independence is not cited in this document. The U.S. Constitution is multiple times. And so I don't know if you want to change that. There's a section in the second whereas where you refer to the Oregon Constitution as Section 10A, that the Oregon Constitution isn't even listed like that. The Oregon Constitution is laid out in articles. I think what you really mean is Article 10A, Section 6. But the Oregon Supreme Court said that your interpretation here is not valid. And so it's unclear to me why we should take your legal opinion over the Oregon Supreme Court on that. Do you have any comment on that?
I do not.
Okay, so upheld by the courts to be unconstitutionally overbroad. I don't believe that is what Joe was talking about. We certainly don't live in California or New York, and I understand the freedom of liberty issue. But is that what we're talking about here, is the ability to go to churches unencumbered by state restrictions? It's not clear which restrictions we're talking about here. Is it churches? Is it businesses? Because the business thing seemed cleared up by the governor. She said she would not impose those restrictions again. So if we're going to do this about businesses, that would seem to be a colossal waste of our time. Is it wearing masks? Is that what we're trying to do? Like, say, we don't want to have to wear masks when we go into the store anymore. A lot of those rules are passed by OSHA, Federal Department of Labor guidelines protecting workers. So I'm just unclear specifically which restrictions we're talking here. If we have a resolution on restrictions, I think it's really important that we know specifically what we're talking about.
Specifically, Councilor Bangs, as I've stated from the beginning, and my intent and my desire here is to add some backup and support to our businesses and our community when these shutdowns occur. It has been impactful on our business community. We have worked long and hard to reestablish a downtown that is thriving and with businesses, and they continue to be hampered. Continuous body blows over the last 14 months in trying to be successful in their business and their livelihoods. And that's not just the owners, it's the employees. So my intent here is to try to show support from us as a council to the governor, saying we need a new tactic here. These shutdowns are not helping.
Okay. So are we talking about masks, social distancing, or should we amend this to specifically identify what you just said? Because the resolution doesn't say what you just said. And I understand businesses are suffering. I don't know a single person who hasn't had a hard time here. Although I think, frankly, the grocery stores have made a killing, and I know the liquor store and the marijuana shops have. They've made a killing during COVID. But this has been colossally difficult for our bars, our restaurants, our gyms. Are we talking about bars, restaurants, and gyms?
That's a start, yes.
So you mean everything?
Well, there's been a number, beyond bars and restaurants and gyms, yeah, there have been other businesses that, impacted. We're starting to see rebounds for sure. This last one was specifically aimed at restaurants and bars and gyms, excuse me.
Right. So that's what I was trying to understand. So if we're just talking about bars, restaurants, and gyms, the governor said she was going to lift that restriction in 2 days and not impose them again.
I don't believe her. Do you?
Well, we'll get to what we believe and what we don't believe here in a minute. And yeah, I tend to believe the governor when she says that. She's been pretty truthful the entire time. The first time we had
a point of order, Mayor. I think that Mr. Bangs has the floor.
He does.
He deserves not to be interrupted.
Thank you, Councilor.
Just
I have a point of order as well. Are we asking questions? Because it sounds like there's a lot of grilling in between these questions. So if these are questions to get more information, I'm all for it. But we decided we weren't going to vote because we had questions. It seems like there's a lot of commentary in between these questions. So I'm just trying to get some clarity on that.
Well, I think it would be helpful if we got clarity on the answers to the questions. And if we didn't have these kinds of answers, I think that you would not have these kinds of arguments. If I may continue, please, Tracy and Jordan.
Yes, sir. Please do.
Thank you. About midway down, it says here, quote, "The people of the city of Canby are constitutionally required to have their rights and liberties restored as quickly and equally as possible." Where does that come from? The Constitution doesn't say that anywhere. Or is that just rhetoric? I don't know what the paragraph numbers are. One of them says, "Several other states of greater population and denser population centers have restored more rights and liberties without an appreciable increase in COVID-related deaths or overnight or hospital overruns." Which states? There's only 4 states that have a lower death rate than Oregon does. They're all itty bitty. It's Alaska, Hawaii, Vermont, and Maine. Which states among these several have had no problems with death rates?
We're seeing other states that are opening up. New York City just announced that they're opening back up as well. And they've been, at a higher rate than we have been. And so it's not necessarily about other states as much as it is about what's going on in Canby and what we want to be able to do to support our businesses.
I wonder if we should just take that paragraph out, because it sort of indicates that it's about other states.
As a comparison, I don't think having a comparison is unfair.
Well, I think if it's a true comparison, I think you're right. But there's only 4 states that have a lower death rate. Only 4. Every single state with a greater population and denser population has a higher death rate. Every one of them. I'm just wondering if you have different information on this, because maybe the research I did, it was flawed. I am curious to know which 2 businesses it was, how many housing losses we've had in Canby, what kind of food loss we've had in Canby. I don't know if we've got data on that. It says here the state arbitrarily allows close quarter access to liquor stores and schools. But certainly not my school. We don't have close quarter access. I have 6 feet mandated spacing between all of my students. Everyone has to wear masks. I'm not sure where that comes from either, and why it says arbitrary. These closures, these mask requirements are based on CDC studies and the Oregon Health Authority. This isn't just arbitrary. Lots and lots and lots of studies show that there is credible statistical evidence of disease spread and prevention in restaurants, bars, and gyms. 2 weeks before you said at the city council in, it was November or December, you said that there's no evidence that shows that the restaurants in Canby are causing any problems. 2 weeks before that, Stanford University and Northwestern both published studies showing that exactly that's wrong. Look, Mr. Mayor, if I seem a little bit fired up about this, I have to tell you, I feel like you're kind of the mayor in the movie Jaws when you said the water is safe. You said the restaurants were safe. My son got COVID in one of those restaurants in Canby a month after you said that. That was my boy. You said the water was safe. When you look at this from what happened here was we had this horrible shutdown in March and April and May, and then we opened up and the governor said, if we can't wear masks, we're going to have to shut down again. And then you didn't wear masks and we shut down again around November and December when my son got COVID. And then the restrictions were lifted and the governor said, we're going to have to shut down again if we don't wear masks. And it happened again. And now we've had another spike, and there's all of these new strains of the COVID virus that are going around. We've got these people that refuse to go along with it. We have 2 city councilors that refuse to get vaccines and complain about wearing masks.
Point of order. That's enough. You're not going to put our business out that you disagree with. I'm sorry, Chris.
Time out, please. Jordan, thank you. Jordan,
I'm not done.
thank you. I understand that. Do you have other questions? And then we'll get into the discussion where you can absolutely continue to.
The point of order is that there was a motion made and a second provided, and this is now discussion.
Well,
I can ask questions during a discussion.
Is it discussion?
Robert's Rules of Orders don't distinguish between questions and discussion, unless I'm wrong on that. Joe, do you want to lay in on a legal opinion on that? Is this inappropriate for me to weigh in on my opinion?
No, I think where we're at, if the motion that was made and seconded was actually on the table, then you're in discussion, and that's great. I think what happened, just the way in which we went about this was, I think they were trying to get staff information prior to the discussion, and so I think that's the confusion. You're right about Robert's Rules of Order, that there isn't a distinguishable, difference between questioning and discussing.
For the record, I'm going off of what Councilor Spoon said, where she did not want to go forward with the motion. She had some questions she wanted to have asked first. So if we are past that and we are in discussion, I retract my statement that you don't have the right to make these comments. I was under the impression we weren't going into the vote in the comment section of this. So if that is incorrect, I stand corrected. But I thought that's what Councilor Spoon had said.
I understand, Jordan. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor,
If I could finish, please.
I would like a point of order. You have questions and answers and discussion regarding the resolution. That does not include attacking your colleagues. I just want to let that out there.
I apologize. I'm attacking this resolution. I'm telling you that the solution to having us all stop wearing masks is to take the vaccine. I don't know where the lack of courage is. What really bothers me is that we have people on the council that profess to Christianity. I've studied this deeply.
Okay, see, that's
strongly.
Chris, Councilor Bangs, that's the stuff that's being taught. That's the personal piece. Okay, do you have right now any other questions on what's here?
I would like to finish. I believe I have the floor in a discussion. I believe that Joe just confirmed that. Is that not true? Are you telling me I can't finish my statement?
Yeah, if you can, but please stop. You're going after, other members of the council, and that's not appropriate.
Okay, so there are people, and I did not name them, who profess to Christianity on our council. Let me ask you, would Jesus turn his back on sick people?
Oh, come on.
Councilor
Really,
Bangs.
is this like something, what would Jesus do in this situation? Would Jesus approve this?
Okay.
This is
Joe, is it appropriate to bring up councilors' faiths and their religion in a council meeting?
It has been brought up numerous times in previous council meetings.
Under your guidelines and your own policies about conduct at meetings, you're supposed to refrain from personal attacks. Now, whether or not this is in a personal attack or if it's trying to use logic to use, personal facets of your life against you, it may feel like an attack. And therefore, I guess if you're taking the temperature of the room, some of you are going to think that feels more like a personal attack, and some of you are going to think I'm just trying to logically use what I know you believe against you. Either way, I guess you can hear that some of them are feeling attacked. If that helps for the discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see this discussion getting us anywhere beneficial, so I call for the question.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but there's still others that want to make comments, and I want to give that entitlement. I've always done that, and I will always do that. Yeah, so I may not agree with how it's being handled right now in some regards, but if those that want to speak, I will let them speak. Now, Councilor Bangs, I'm sorry that your son got COVID. I'm sorry that happened. But to insinuate that it's my fault that he got COVID, uncalled for. That's not mine. I won't wear that, and so please don't put that on me. Okay, that's I'm sorry that he got it, and I don't know what business it was or where it was. That's not.
I have no interest in identifying the business, but you said
I don't want you to.
I won't.
Back then. So,
okay, I believe I have not yielded the floor nor concluded my comments here.
That's fine, and I will let you get back to them. But please dial back what's being perceived as personal attacks.
Dial this back. People die because of this. Now, the truth is, this doesn't mean anything. This is just the city council. It's not even the city of Canby. There was no advance notice. People don't know about this yet. It's just the city council saying, we don't want masks. We don't want social distancing. That's going to kill people. I think you all need to look in the mirror and say, like, what are you trying to do here other than perhaps create another division in the council? This was an unnecessary and really a hurtful document here. It is filled with untruths. There are not violations to our civil liberties. There are not a pile of, like you say that it's the social isolation that's causing the rise in all this. Don't you think it could be the fear of COVID? That might be a factor. In the people's mental health impacts, the fear of COVID, this is the worst pandemic in all of our lifetimes. It is appropriate, I think, that it's numbered 1347. That's the year that the Black Death arrived in Europe. I'll yield my comments here. I think this is horrible. I think it's divisive. If you want to run the state, you should run this for state legislature. This doesn't help the city of Canby. My comments are done.
Thank you, sir. So as we are in the discussion piece here, does anybody else have any?
Councillor Banks still has his hand. Oh, there, he took it down.
No, he's Councillor Spoon and then Councillor Tibbles.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you letting me ask my questions and then make a statement later. My statement tonight has nothing to do with my thoughts on the legitimacy of restrictions related to the global pandemic. Like most people, I find many of the regulations inconsistent and frustrating, and I definitely don't agree with every action in the last 14 months. However, I don't believe any of us are qualified epidemiologists or public health experts, so I'm not sure it's appropriate for us to even comment on such measures anyway. I worry and pray for our businesses who have struggled over the last 14 months. We as a council have fought to make things easier where we can. We provided grant funds to businesses that were struggling. We allowed for outdoor seating in parking lots and public streets. And we've modeled to the community that we all need to band together and shop local to keep these businesses afloat. That's how you help businesses. I know that businesses have shouldered an undue burden that has compromised their life's work and the financial security of their valued staff. I know all of them just want to get back to business as normal as soon as possible. And I wish the government would step up and provide more relief to compensate for the sacrifices they've made and to support those who have been out of work due to the pandemic. I also pray for those who have chronic health problems after COVID or who have lost loved ones due to COVID. I worry for our most medically vulnerable citizens who have to live amongst people who don't care for their well-being. Let me note that I've spoken to some business owners in town who have regular customers from out of the area, and they worry that a statement like this and any potential press about Canby that might come of it might make this community and their business undesirable to their regular customers, and that they might stop coming to the businesses out of fear that people here don't take COVID seriously, and coming here might put them at risk. It's a mistake to assume or think that every business in our community wants this resolution to be passed. I also want to talk about the validity of the resolution. It's wrought with unverified claims, inaccuracies, vague, inflammatory, and ideological language that is purely political theater and nothing more. Feelings aren't facts. And this whole resolution is full of feelings and falsehoods. It was irresponsible to even bring the false statements and unverified claims to city staff and to us, and it would be irresponsible for anyone to vote it in approval. We should never even be considering actions with unverified claims. Approving this, furthermore, would be us writing checks for our egos and ideology with someone else's money. Nothing happens to us if we pass this, but as Joe said, we could bring risk or harm to others, like I'm not the only one that got kicked out.
Oh, I thought it was me.
I thought it was me. Okay.
I was in panic. I thought maybe it looked like I'd stormed off or something in anger, but I hadn't.
Are you back?
Yeah.
Oddly, this has only happened once in my classes where it all just shut off.
Yeah. Are we unmuted now? Okay. Hey, you guys, we're sorry. That cut off.
Seems to be on our end on this.
Yeah, probably the City Hall connection. And sorry about that. We have to make sure once everybody gets back on here that we do a count back down so that Gordon can make sure we're going back online. And sorry to interrupt.
Welcome back, Canby. We apologize for I think we had some technical difficulties. That's as generic as I can go. I don't know much more than that. I think we just lost connectivity that wiped us all out. So we will pick up where we left off. And I think, Sarah, you had left off when I think I last heard words and people moving. Do you know where you left off? Or
I don't. I'm trying to ask someone else because I don't know when the feed cut. I was looking at my statement instead of the screen. So I don't want to be repetitive, but I can just go back to the beginning of that paragraph.
Yeah,
someone just told me where I left off. Okay.
Okay.
I will. Thank you. Okay. Wait, now I have to find that. Okay. Approving this would be us writing checks for our egos and ideology with someone else's money. Nothing happens to us if we pass this, but we could bring risk or harm to others in playing political games with their businesses. This resolution does no actual good. It's performative at best, and it changes absolutely nothing about the restrictions it complains about. Restrictions are lifting again in less than 2 days. The finish line for restrictions is on the horizon as our vaccination rates increase, but this resolution has the potential to cause real, measurable financial harm to our local businesses if it brings undue scrutiny that Joe said was possible. I am further concerned that it makes unverified claims tarnishing our reputation as a safe city by claiming that we have significant increases in burglary, theft, what you call them, crimes of desperation, when we're trying to ramp our tourism efforts up, or that it might hurt businesses that depend on customers to come in from out of town. I also want to discuss process, which is something we've not talked about. Ironically, some of the claims in the emails we received are that another elected official is abusing their power. But in the way I see it, and I know I'm not alone here, this resolution is actually an abuse of power. Chapter 5 lists the explicit powers of the mayor. Chapter 3 of the city charter says that the city administrator and the city attorney work for the council, and all power, unless otherwise explicitly explained elsewhere, resides with the council. The charter gives the mayor no authority to direct city staff, city administrator, or city attorney. And over time, I've seen the scope creep of these powers to managing and directing city staff outside of the actual authority of the mayor. This resolution should have never come to the city attorney, and the mayor never should have directed the city attorney to work on something for him without the consent of the council. The charter simply does not give him that power. By bringing a resolution to city staff that is completely unverified and possibly untrue, and at the very least, the mayor can't prove that anything it claims is true, he has lost my confidence in being able to work directly with city staff. Moving forward, my expectation of Joe and Scott is that you follow the charter to the letter of the law and protect its integrity. I expect no further taking of direction from the mayor without explicit consent from the council. If the council wants to get to herd immunity, use your platform to encourage people to get vaccinated. If you want to place blame on the governor, call a press conference or make a social media post with your opinion. But to bring a resolution that we have to discuss and vote on as a council serves to only further divide our council, as is clearly happening tonight. So it's doing a good job. It divides our staff, it divides our community, and I am profoundly disappointed. For all of the talk about not using council as a platform for our political opinions and about how council is the place to do the work of the city and not make political statements, this is politically opportunist at the expense of the very business owners it claims to care about. I refuse to compromise the security of our businesses and throw them under the bus at the last minute just so I can score some political points.
Thank you, Councillor Spoon. Councillor Tibbles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to start off by saying I think it's really, really inappropriate to go after a protected class as religion, as Councillor Bangs decided to do. I would venture to say that any other protected class, if you inserted that in place of Christian, you would never dare to appeal to that. And I think it's really inappropriate. I don't appreciate it. The people of faith in the community probably don't appreciate it. So I'm going to start there. I think when we live in a free country, people have, at this point, all the people who want to have access to the vaccine do. And so what are we talking about? Are we talking about we're going to be shut down until we force vaccinations on everyone? So I believe I've talked to you, Chris, that you said that shouldn't be forced upon anyone. So what are we talking about? You're forcing me as a counselor to advocate on the way that you feel? That's not America. That's not freedom. It's not freedom of speech. I don't have to agree with you on everything. And there's a lot of people who agree with me. And the businesses who are being affected is the city business. The businesses are closing is city business. We all sit up here and proclaim that we care about small businesses. It's so easy to say, order more takeout, do your part. But we have an opportunity to stand as free Americans against the tyrannical orders that don't make any sense that our governor is doing. And the audacity for her to close these businesses. And one example is the restaurants are closed, but, you know, Oregon Lottery still needs their money. So you can open your door so people can come gamble, but you can't serve them food. Give me a break. We are a free nation. I'm gonna read this since everyone else decided to grandstand on their own. The Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That what in any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. I would say the government picking that corporations can stay open, picking winners and losers, and squashing the American dream of restaurant owners and gym owners who put it all on the line to open their businesses is overstepping their bounds. And this is as a city saying enough is enough. We don't agree with this. The goalpost changes. But it always seems to be okay for the big corporations. Always seems Costco's still open, Walmart's still open, because there's money. You know who doesn't have the money? Small business to fight this. And the fact that we're going to say we shouldn't speak out because the governor may weaponize its agencies against its people. Wow. Wow. So we're not talking this is
order. I was misquoted. I didn't say the governor. I didn't say the governor.
Okay, so we shouldn't speak out because government agencies can be weaponized against us for saying that it's wrong to shut down businesses.
Point of order. I also didn't say they would be weaponized. I said it would draw attention to them.
What was it? What was the exact terminology?
It would attract undue attention. I said it would attract undue attention because we'd be making a statement.
And scrutiny. So, I mean,
I just want to make sure that my statements aren't taken out of context.
Okay, so that is alluding that we better not do anything because what if the agencies get turned against us? I fundamentally reject that in a free nation. I'm sorry. So we're going to disagree on this, but people have a right to make a living. And we're talking about also, there's the whole bit on masks. I'm out at a park with my daughter who's 2 years old, and a 5-year-old girl sees my daughter without a mask and gets too close and runs away from her because she's afraid that my daughter might have a disease. We're training people to think they're a vessel for disease, and we don't think that's psychologically damaging to people. So I'm going to end with this. We're going to disagree. It was always going to be a disagree on this, but we live in a free country. People can choose to do what they're going to do. If they want to get vaccinated, everyone has access to it at this point, and they have the freedom to do that. But people also have the freedom to make a living, put food on their table, and not worry about the government shutting them down, and then all of a sudden deciding, oh, you can open your doors, but only if you allow people to play lotto. You can't actually serve their food in there because the government needs their money. That's what we're standing up against as a city, saying that's wrong. And I'll die on that hill. So that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Tibbles. Councilor Henley, do you have comments, or are you wanting to ask for the question?
Both. I already asked for the question, but I got shot down on that.
I understand that because
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Councilor Tibbles just said. I want to also remind the council that we don't actually specify anything about masks in this resolution. You can choose to wear your mask if you think they're effective. This is about standing up and having a voice for our business community. It's about saying enough is enough and saying that we believe that our business owners deserve the right to make a living for their families and employ those people and not have to keep laying people off and losing ingredients when they get fired up, and we can open up again and they stock up and then, oh, no, just kidding, shutting down again. Then they lose all that money again. They're putting up tents. They're spending all this money trying to just survive, and they're not surviving. And it's not okay. And it's just time for us to stand up and let our business community know that we have their back, that we believe in them, and that we'll do what we can to help them out. We understand that we have no control over state agencies. We are not pretending we do. But Main Street is dying. Livelihoods are going away. Mental health issues are on the rise. I've seen things firsthand. I've had people reach out to me multiple times. This absolutely is just the spirit of this resolution is not saying we're telling people to break the rules. We're not saying don't wear your mask. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. That's not at all what this resolution is about. It's about standing up and saying enough is enough. And I don't know what else to say, but it's totally wholeheartedly has my vote. I have several emails and texts about it. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Varwig, your hand is up.
Yeah. I'm really sad at the behavior tonight. This has been a hard year for a lot of people. I get it. I think it seems to me that this was an opportunity to lob some personal attacks. And I think that's what we have right now, unfortunately, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. I wish we could. I think the spirit of this resolution was to support our businesses. I'm in favor of it because I'm in favor of our businesses. The wording may not be perfect. No matter what it said, I think there would have been some questions of what was said in there. I think it's time to end the yo-yo ride for our restaurants, our bars, our gyms, the businesses that have struggled so much this last year. If wording isn't perfect, I get it. We wanted to say different things, but I think that the spirit of this was to support our businesses, and for that reason, I'm for it.
Thank you, Councilor Varwig. Councilor Parker.
Thanks, Brian. I know you're a person of good heart, and I know you're a gentleman, Brian, so I know you meant no ill will by presenting this. But let me speak up a little bit for process. Section 3 of the charter says that all power resides in the city council. I do not question the mayor's ability to put something on the agenda. That is an unquestioned right. But the idea of bringing a resolution that Larry Boatwright emailed you from the city of Baker City and then handing it to one of our city employees, one who is employed not by the mayor, but by the city council, and say, here, work on this, that is out of order. I mean, it is problematic. You know, do you really want me to have the ability to walk into our city attorney's office any day of the week and say, here, write a resolution on this? No. My expectation of our city manager and our city attorney, the two who work for us, is that when any one city councilor or the mayor comes forward with an idea that has not been vetted and sought consensus from the council as whole, is to say, take it to the council. Now, Brian, you said there were some timing issues, that you're not going to be here next week and that sort of thing. And haste sometimes has its problems. But I think you probably recognize that this was going to be a 4-3 vote. And this was only going to separate the council. And finally, to the city staff. I'm sorry we put you in this position. But here's my expectation for anything that comes before the city council. That it has been vetted and that it has been fact-checked. And that we have a recommendation. And Scott, I don't blame you for this. That's happened before you were here, but we have this agreement with Rick Robinson, which is anything that comes before the city council has a staff report and a staff recommendation. You kind of got caught up in the middle of this. So I think this is out of our normal order. I think this only serves to divide us. If you're saying you want to pass a resolution tonight that says we support our businesses, okay, yes, I am. Can I amend it to say we also want to support Section 3 of the city charter and recognize the roles, the differences between the mayor and the city council? Brian, you and I have had this conversation for 12 years. We have a weak mayor system. It is not one where you get to walk into the city attorney's office and say, here, rewrite this. I'm going to put this on the city agenda tomorrow. It violates the spirit of citizen involvement and having a public hearing. If I were to write a resolution, I'd say, wear a mask, get vaccinated. But I know that's not something that would even carry a majority on the council. So why do it? My recommendation is, and in fact, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that we table this discussion.
We already have a motion on the table.
Melissa, is in fact a motion to table a privileged motion?
It is.
Okay. So,
Second.
There's no debate, Mayor. We take a second and then we vote.
okay. So the motion's been made by Councilor Parker to table this resolution for a later date. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor Spoon. All those in favor of tabling it? That's 3 to table it. Those not in favor of tabling it? That is also 3, and I will also vote to not table it.
All right, well, you've got 4 votes to pass this, so let's go ahead and do this.
I had a recommendation I asked if I could make, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
It seems like this is really dividing us. I don't think any of us want it. I think if we all sit down and talk, we share more in common about wanting to support our local businesses, wanting to make sure our vulnerable populations are safe, wanting to make sure that people who choose not to get vaccinated have that freedom. Why don't we just rewrite a a resolution for Canby from Canby instead of taking a resolution from somewhere else that actually takes all of our opinions into account, that we all agree we want to support the businesses. Many of us agree that the language in this is unverified, imperfect. Why don't we, instead of just taking a resolution from somewhere else, why don't we just ask city staff to write a resolution for us, about us from here, actually from what we say and what we think, instead of for what they think in another city, that we can all agree on instead of dividing our council like this?
Thank you, Councilor Spoon. Councilor Hensley, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to address the what I view as a tax on you. The mayor didn't take anything on his own. He had 3 counselors that came to him with it. And the language wasn't directly from another city. It was tweaked multiple times to get it to where we wanted it before we brought it to the council. And with that, I call for the question.
Councilor Parker, your hand is still up. Did you have something? No. Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Yeah, I don't. This isn't to score political points. This is truly about making a statement for our businesses in our community. Is some of the language in here extreme, or have there been liberties taken? Yes, I'll say that may be the case. So it's not scoring political points. I think that this is. I don't think this harms or put the target on Canby by the state agencies. I think if we were encouraging them to open and go against the governor's decrees or direction, that would put a target on us. The spirit of this is to support our businesses that are being beat up and hurting. Process, as Councilor Parker brought up and Councilor Spoon brought up. Yes, Mr. Boatwright did send me that Baker City resolution, and so did a number of other people. And I did at the time have 3 counselors that verified wanting to do a resolution like this to back our businesses. I had, on Saturday when I was meeting with Councilor Spoon, she had commented as well that, wanting to sit outside to, be respectful of the governor's mandate, but that she also didn't agree with it, and that's fine. There have been off and on pieces that haven't been agreed. Councilor Parker, you and I have, we constantly talk about wanting to support downtown and make statements to the such of encouraging people to go and show love to our business community now, in every shutdown. But why do we need to shut them down? And that's my point. My point is to push back on these closure mandates on our businesses. That's what I'm trying to do. Trying to create support to do so to the governor's office and join other cities in doing the same kind of push to say, let them do business. Let people decide. I don't want to go sit at a restaurant because I don't want to get COVID. So is this the language that was put together? Yes. Does taking time to redo it? Is that, I don't know. I don't know if that does anything, Councilor Spoon. I really don't. I don't. I really. Maybe my naivete to think that this was going to be this cantankerous this evening on this matter. So Councilor Parker, is that a new hand raise or a different one?
That's new. Thank you. Well, I think as Council President Hensley pointed out, you only worked with half the council on this. And I think we can do better than that. And maybe we wouldn't be here if you would have picked up the phone to Chris, to Sarah, to me, and say, what do you think about this? Tracy said it was the three of you. And this is what we've been worried about, that the conservatives would meet together, come up with language, come up with ideas, and exclude half of the council from this discussion. The first time I heard about this was yesterday at 4:30. And come on, Brian, we can do better than that.
Councilor Spoon?
I'd like to ask a question of Joe. If what they said is true, that the three of them agreed on doing this, isn't that a serial meeting and a violation of quorum laws? That four of them agreed on something? I object to being excluded on partisan lines anyway, but if what she said is true, that the three of them agreed on this, the four of them, isn't that a violation of quorum laws?
There, three councilors is not a majority for the council. The mayor only votes in the event of a tie. So it's close. I would always.
It's a serial meeting though, isn't it?
Can I clarify that we didn't all meet together? I expressed my interest to the mayor, but I had no part in the crafting of any of this. So it wasn't a meeting where we all met together. I expressed my interest to him, and I believe that Councilor Tibbles and Councilor Hensley also expressed interest. So it wasn't that we met together to talk about it.
I was still asking my question, which is that the way that Tracy explained it is different than the mayor explained it in email. But either way, if that decision was made the way Tracy said it did, isn't it a serial meeting, even if they didn't all meet together?
Three councilors can meet together and not have a majority, so they didn't have a quorum.
Well, then I will say I wholeheartedly object to being excluded from the conversation on partisan lines. This is what you promised us wouldn't happen. And if you want a council that works together, you have to work with us. You can't exclude us from everything and then expect us to just think that everything works the way that you want it to. It's frustrating. And I feel disrespected, to be honest.
It's been done in the past that we have brought things to the council. That's it. We didn't decide anything other than some language to present to you all. I, for one, wanted harsher language. I got shot down, for the record. And I will remind the mayor that the call for question has happened twice.
Thank you. Councilor Parker, your hand is still up. Are you? No. Okay. Councilor Hensley, your hand is still up. Are you? Okay. Well, the motion on the table is motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Varwig to consider resolution number 1347, a resolution in favor of our businesses and citizen civil liberties and against any more shutdowns or unnecessary restrictions. All those in favor? That's 3 in favor. All those opposed? That is 3 opposed. And I am for the resolution. So that resolution passes 4-3. Next on the agenda is an update from the Transit Director, Todd Wood, regarding Canby area transit.
Mr. Mayor and Council, just a quick introduction, if I may. It was a good opportunity to have our Transit Director, Todd Wood, give you a brief update tonight, as he was here for another business item, which is actually the next item following. So I'll just have Mr. Wood stay here after that and give you a staff report on our recommendation for our new contract. But this is an opportunity simply to just let you briefly know about some things that are happening. You don't get to hear from Mr. Wood very often, and we've got some things in the works. And our transit is a busy operation that has continued to operate through our COVID situation and provide great service. So I'm just going to invite Mr. Wood to give you that that update tonight.
Word here, sir.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to take this off real quick. Introduce myself. My name is Todd Wood. I am the transit director for Canby Area Transit. I started about a year ago. So what I'm going to do here is kind of just take about 10 minutes, give or take, and rush through a presentation I have prepared about where we're at, what we're doing, where we come from. For those of you who are new, it's new information. For those of you who have been here for a while, it's going to be review. But I just want to give you a high-level overview of Canby Area Transit and where we're at today, so you're familiar with us, especially with the ordinance that's coming up, or the resolution that's coming up, so you have a better background on what it's about. So Melissa will fire that off for me. That'd be great. Cool. Do I have control or do you have control? I'm in control for once. All right, so Canby Area Transit, we go by CAT. So when you hear people refer to CAT, that's generally what they're referring to. There are a few other CATs in the area, but for us, that's the main one. So just to give you some very basic historical references. So everything used to be TriMet. Everything in Portland Metro used to be TriMet. But in the late 90s, the outlying cities said, hey, we can do a better job. We want to do a better job. They asked the state, can we do a better job? And South Clackamas Transit was the first. That's Malala, to bail out of the transit TriMet district. And then you had Wilsonville, which was after that. And then you had the city of Canby in 2002, who withdrew from TriMet. And then you had the city of Sandy shortly after. With that came the payroll tax that was originally TriMet's payroll tax. It was taken over by those various entities. So since 2002, the city has operated its own transit system. Part of the reason they did that is because TriMet provided service just to downtown Canby and back to Oregon City and nothing else whatsoever for the payroll tax we were paying into. So the city wanted better control over what was happening and better service. So they started service. They started an express route up and down 99, and they started a lot of service in town. Unfortunately, we hit 2007, 2008, 2009, and the market crashed, everything crashed, the housing crashed, grants got reduced, funding sources got reduced, and every single transit center out there had some sort of damage. I was working at TriMet at the time. We laid off many, many people. We shut down a lot of service. Canby felt the same effects. They had to cut all their inner city lines and try to make up the difference with what we call dial-a-ride, which is door-to-door service, and then keep the 99 running. They've done that for a number of years. Back in 2018, they decided to adjust the name to 99 Express. They did that specifically because the laws changed a little bit to say that if you have a service that runs in commuter times or non-commuter times, you need to provide dial-a-ride service along the entire route. And one of the specifications was the number of stops. And so because we go all the way to Woodburn, we reduced the number of stops in order to keep, because we wanted to remain express specifically for those folks during the commuter times that are going to and from work. We still offer paratransit services, but not at the same frequency in the Woodburn area. That's actually handled by Woodburn themselves. And then in 2019, we implemented Saturday service using the State Transportation Improvement Fund. I'll talk about the funding in a little bit. So that's where we're at today. Today we have a well, let's hit our staffing real quick, then we'll talk about our services. So I'm Todd. I'm the director of transit. I also oversee the two fleet services folks that we have. We have our transit coordinator, that's Heidi Muller. Those are the only two actual city staff that support directly transit. We're funded by transit and we work in transit. And then we have Robert Stricker. He's the fleet supervisor. The reason I have him down here is because even though he handles all of the city, he spends almost all of his time on transit. We fund 50% of all fleet services because we use 50+% of all fleet services with our vehicles. So as far as the city goes, that's it. We are the entire city transit staff. The rest is contractors. So currently we have MV Transportation. We've had them for about 9 years. We go back out for RFP and a new contract every so often. That's actually up tonight. That's what we're talking about. The current general manager is a man by the name of David Thorndike. He's been there for a little over a year. And they provide 3 dispatchers, about 12 drivers, a field supervisor, and a bus washer. All those are part of that contract. All the people under operations are actually covered by the Amalgamated Transit Union. So when we switch contractors, they're all covered under that. As far as the manager goes and the contractor goes, they're not covered by the Amalgamated Transit Union. We're currently located at Hazeldale Way. We rent from Bob Zimmer. We're right next to the vet services. You kind of see it here to the right a little bit, which is kind of interesting because we have cat and then we have a vet. So we often get people from the vet walking into the cat office. So we find that quite fascinating when we have to explain to people, no, I know it looks like a vet. It's not. That's next door. Behind this, I've got a picture up here. You see it says cat property for the future. We actually own about 2 acres behind this area here. And at some point, hopefully in the very near future, I'll be coming to you with some options for building because we'd like to stop renting and actually build property. We're in about 1,700 square feet. It's not enough room for what we have. We've got 5 new buses on the way. There's not enough space in our parking lot for all 5. So we need to do some adjustments to our property. So hopefully in the future, very near future, we'll be talking about how and where to build so that I can move forward on that. All right, back to what we currently have. So currently we run the 99 Express. It runs from Oregon City all the way to Woodburn. It starts at 5 a.m. and goes till about 11 p.m. in Oregon City, only until about 8 p.m. in Woodburn right now. And then we go 8 to 6:45 on Saturdays. So that's it runs about every hour during the non-rush hour times and about every half an hour during the rush hour times. And that's our most popular service. That's the one we get the most ridership from. We have complimentary paratransit services. It's for those who can't use the fixed route. Runs from 8 to 6 and then 8 to 6:30 on Saturdays. We also run that up into Oregon City, specifically to the hospital and to places of business for those who can't ride the normal fixed route or would have to transfer to TriMet. We've got an agreement with TriMet that says we'll take them straight up to the hilltop. So we do that on a fairly regular basis. Then we have our general public dial-a-ride. So any seat we don't fill in paratransit services will allow anybody in the public who wants to use our services to use it. So they just have to call, get into the system, and then we set them up for that service. That also operates on Saturdays, and it runs 8 to 6. It's only within the urban growth boundary, though. So if you don't qualify for paratransit, you're limited to going to the store in Canby or going to the park or wherever you're going in Canby, and you can't go outside of there. And then we have a shopper shuttle. We run those generally Monday through Friday, but we go north specific times and south specific times. When the pandemic wasn't raging, we were a $1 fare service. And so the shopper shuttle was a free service that anybody could ride to get to the store. Everything's free now. We still run the shopper shuttle. It's still used, just not to the same level since everything else is also free. I just wanted to kind of give you just a little bit of look real quick. Our ridership has taken a pretty big hit due to the pandemic. The fixed route is down significantly. Last year at this time, we were about 64,000 riders. Right now, we're at about 43,000. So we've lost about 20,000 due to the pandemic. It's not a bad thing. It means a lot of people are staying home instead of traveling around. But it also shows that we have a lot of people that still need our service even during the pandemic. We have not cut service. We've kept it running. We've kept it running on full schedule so that those who need to get to and from work can get to and from work. Our paratransit took a much larger hit, but it is also geared towards our elderly and disabled population. So especially at the height of the pandemic, we dropped pretty low. We're starting to pick back up as more people get vaccinated. They're more willing to ride our services. We do require masks on our services. We do have every other seat blocked out. The drivers are behind shields, so we've taken a lot of precautions still. But as people get vaccinated, they're starting to come back, and we're starting to see ridership tick up. But it's down by almost 80% over the last year. So it's taken a serious hit. As far as our funding goes, we get a series of grants. The 5311 is a rural grant for populations under 25,000, which we still are at this point, and we use that mainly to help fund our fixed route services. We get about 285,000. I think next year it's 293,000 annually to help fund that service. It does have a match rate to it. We get our 5310. That actually comes through TriMet through the federal government. Well, TriMet through the state, through the federal government. That we get about $84,000 a year. That supports our elderly and disabled transportation. The state transportation fund is one of the oldest funds. It comes directly from the state. We get about $120,000 a year. That also comes through TriMet through the state. Supports our elderly and disabled transportation. And then the newer fund is the State Transportation Improvement Fund. That's the one that comes out of everybody's paycheck, that little line item that says transit. It's based on where you work, not where you live. So everybody who works in Canby contributes to Canby's State Transportation Improvement Fund. That money also goes through TriMet and through the state. And that funds our Saturday service and will fund our future city circulator. It's also going to buy us 2 buses to help us run the city circulator because we don't have enough of those buses to do that. As far as the business payroll tax, that's the bulk of our funding. We are at 0.6% or $6 per thousand that's paid by the businesses themselves. Comparison to TriMet's payroll tax, TriMet is at $7.84 per thousand. TriMet has a built-in multiplier. It goes up every single year. We've kept ours at $6 per thousand. We want to keep it at $6 per thousand because we want to give businesses a better deal than they get if they were in TriMet's territory. All right, just a pie chart to see most of our funding, as you can see, is funded by the businesses here in Canby. It is the bulk of our the money we get. The grants, not including the State Transportation Improvement Fund, make up about 23%. 6% is the State Transportation Improvement Fund. Fares really just cover gas. And we're not charging fares right now. Comes in about $60,000 a year in fares when we get it. So it's not a lot of money. It wasn't too terribly painful to let it go for the pandemic. We did get some money from the federal government to help cover those fares. But. All right, so what are we doing here in the future? We're looking at a city circulator. We've talked about that a little bit. We're trying to bring back some of those services that were lost. They are fairly expensive, but we'd like to slowly bring them on. So we're hoping to have the first one kick off in October. If we get it all up and running and ready, it'd be great to have you all write it sometime in September before we officially kick it off in October. We've got funding for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. So Monday through Friday for about 12 hours a day. We're hoping to do about 30 minutes a trip, give or take. So there'd be one bus in service at a time. And probably in one direction at this point. Canby's just small enough that if you expand much beyond 40 minutes, most people can walk faster. So you kind of have this balance of how far do you go? Because I can cover the entire city in a little over an hour, but who's going to wait a little over an hour for a bus when they can walk in 20 minutes? So 30 minutes is about the right average for that. We're looking at just the south side right now, simply because that's where the bulk of our businesses are. A lot of our lower income neighborhoods are there. A lot of our Hispanic population is down there. And those are the folks most likely to use our city circulator. That doesn't mean the people in the north won't. It's just that with the funding we have, we sort of have to pick and choose at this point. And so that's kind of where we're starting our focus, hoping to expand to the north within a few short years, depending on how the world goes. In addition to that, we're working on improving 99E, at least I think so. I say that because we're tied to the ODOT's 99E project, which I feel like keeps getting kicked down the road. I think we're at spring to summer of 2022 now. When they do that, we are going to improve our 10 bus stops that starting from Territorial all the way down to Berg Parkway. We're going to add shelters in almost all of them. There's a couple we aren't due to landscaping issues and right-of-way issues. And then there'll be ADA improvements as well as lighting improvements. We've picked a couple of shelters that are incredibly classy, and I think they'll look really nice when they're in there. And it should hopefully make it easier for people to ride and more comfortable to ride. But again, I think we're looking at spring of 2022 now. And then as far as coordination goes, I wanted to bring this up as well. I meet weekly with the other transit partners, including Clackamas County. Clackamas County runs several services. They're just starting up a service in Clackamas for, I think I want to call it Evelyn Drive. There's a lot of businesses down there. They're trying to cover some of Oregon City. They're also trying to cover some of the areas where we don't have any transit. We are included in Clackamas County's transit master plan. They sort of take what we have in our transit master plan and adopt it into theirs. So for instance, in their current transit master plan, they talk about, we're going to add a city circulator. They talk about the fact that we'd like to expand to Woodburn more frequently in the evenings in the future. So that's the type of stuff. They also look at the uncovered areas. Since we don't go past the urban growth boundary for the most part, and Aurora and South is all actually Marion County, we have very little service to the south and southeast of this city. Most of our services are to the north and northwest of the city. So those are some of the areas that Clackamas County wants to help hit. I also need to meet with the city of Salem at some point and see if I can't get some help serving Aurora. I've been contacted by one of the counselors from Aurora who wants to talk about how we can expand service to them a little bit so that they can get more dial-a-ride type services there and promote more public transportation. All our STF 5310 and STIF funding is obtained through a partnership with TriMet. TriMet is what's called the qualified entity. So all that money is funneled from the state to TriMet and then from TriMet to us. So we go through a coordination effort with them and work on the funding there so that they have a good idea of what we're doing with that money. The STF and the SCIF are eventually going to be combined to one fund, and TriMet will manage both of those. So we also have a pretty strong partnership with ODOT, but they are our regulatory body. Oh, I don't know what I just did. I did something. There we go. That's it. Quick, easy questions, if you have any.
Todd, thank you so much for coming and presenting and hanging in with us here this evening while we get to you. So, can you go back to the slide that had that showed the ridership overall, 2020 compared to 2021?
So, just to be clear, it's only 6 months fiscal year to date. I didn't give you the overall. So, when you're looking at 2020 and 2021, when I say year to date, I'm talking about. We do all our stuff on fiscal year. So that would be July 1st to the end of March.
So the 43,000 compared to the 64 is the same time period?
Same time period, yes,
okay.
Correct.
Great, thank you. And then my other question was, when we were talking about the payroll tax as a source of revenue, what's been the decrease in payroll tax last year's period to this year's period? So it's sort of an interesting, it's hard to say. And the reason it's hard to say is because at the same time that we had all these shutdowns, we also had several large businesses opening. Columbia Distributing has opened. We've got a lot of building going on, and all those builders pay into this payroll tax. So we actually didn't see a decrease because we saw an increase that offset the decrease. No, perfect. And then I just want to say thank you for all your continued efforts to get a circular going. I think that's been something we've been striving for a period of time now. So thank you for continuing to push that forward. I think the not charging for fares right now, I think has been appropriate and the right thing to do. So thank you for continuing to fight that fight and find ways to cover the gasoline costs of doing that. So thank you. I think Councilor Spoon, I think I saw that your hand was up.
I think Greg was up first. He can go first.
Okay, Councilor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, the mayor's absolutely right. You hit on all the right points for us, things that we've been talking about for the past 10 years. Yes, we need bus shelters. We need to show respect for the people that use public transit. And that means providing refuge out of the elements for them. And then also just a sensitivity towards the demographics that we have in Canby. Every morning, 8,000 people get up in Canby and drive to jobs in Washington and Multnomah County. At the same time, 4,000 people drive in to jobs in Canby. Often when I talk to citizens and they talk about the traffic, that's the traffic that we are talking to. And every person that you can capture from an automobile into one of our buses helps reduce that. So you have kind of a golden adventure ahead of you to try and capture some of those people and reduce some of that commute mixture. So you've got my support. You're saying all the right things, and let's move ahead.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. Councilor Spoon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much, Todd. I know that we've discussed this in meetings with me as a liaison to CAP, but I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work you're continuing. It's, anytime you have a big change in leadership, it's kind of a wait and see if the projects are going to continue smooth and seamlessly, or if there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. And given all the limitations that we had this year and surprises, I'm just really impressed with how you kept everything moving in our projects along. I'll echo, as I have in the transit meetings, I love bus shelters. I think that riding public transit with dignity is really important. And I appreciate the look at our most vulnerable and at-risk populations and how we can best serve those who are typically underserved. My question is one that we kind of talked about a couple months ago in a transit meeting, but I'm just wondering if you've had an opportunity to follow up or if you've gotten any feedback from the businesses on the south side yet on how our routes will kind of meet up with their shift times, and if they think that their staffs are likely to use the bus or if they commute in from other areas. Like, what does that look like? And depending on the feedback we get, would that potentially lead to a change in routes? Or just kind of an update on that conversation we had would be great. Thanks.
Yep. We have contacted those businesses. We've talked to them. Shifts vary depending on the type of business. So for instance, you have a place like Columbia Distributing has early shifts and late shifts and go throughout the day. Many of the businesses, the bulk of their shifts were 6 a.m., 7 a.m. starts into the later afternoons, like 3, 4, 5, 6 in those areas. A lot of our facilities, such as Hope Village and other facilities, those were more 8 to 5 type shifts. As far as the number of people, we didn't get a good read from them. They weren't sure. It's not an availability they have now, so they weren't 100% sure how many people would actually use it and how many wouldn't use it. I know we get a lot of people that walk from we get a lot of workers who will get off and walk down the road from the Sequoia Parkway stop and some other stops and walk down that way. So I'm hoping we can capture some of that. I think there's going to be a little bit of trial and error into this as we kick this off and we see which businesses are and aren't being utilized. If we're flying by Columbia Distributing all the time and 0 people are riding, we might have to look at adjusting that route to a better location. But we're hoping that once people know it's there, that they'll use it. But it's hard to tell for sure who's going to use it before you kick it off. That's always a difficulty. But yeah, we did touch base with the businesses. We're not going to be able to capture the large business shifts very well, simply because they have so many of them. And the low seniority folks, to be honest, they get the bad ones. And it's often hard to capture those bad ones because they're often very, very late. And even if we could capture them on our end, TriMet's not going to capture them very well on their end. And so how would they get to us in the first place? So that's always a challenge. So we'll have to balance that. There's always a balancing act. We don't have unlimited funds. And thus there's always this, somebody's going to lose and somebody's going to win. So how can we make the winners the people that most need the win? And that's kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective. It's really holistic on kind of serving all of the needs. I think that you've demonstrated a great ability to be fleet-footed and pivot in the last 14 months. And so while I'm sure it'll take time to figure out where exactly the greatest need is, I know that if it needs an adjustment, I see nothing but the ability to pivot and adjust from you since you signed on. So I know you'll find a way. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Councilor Spoon. Any other questions or comments for Todd at this point? Have a question. I'm not seeing everyone on my screen right now, so just raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Sold. Todd, thank you very much for giving us an update on Canby area transit. We appreciate it. I know that you're also hard at work with the other transit agencies in Clackamas County, because I know that there's big plans that are brewing in that regard. So I like too that we're playing a major role in a regional transit piece. So thank you for that.
Well, one thing, Mayor, I didn't mention, I'll throw out there real quick. I don't know if people realize this, but Wilsonville comes to Canby, South Clackamas comes to Canby. We also meet TriMet in Oregon City. We also meet in Woodburn. We meet Woodburn area transit. We also meet Chariots in Woodburn. So we're pretty close to one of the most connected cities that you could find out there. And we all work together. It's been a great experience, especially with the Clackamas County partners. We get together all the time. We talk about things. We've been working through COVID together. It's been fantastic. It's a great group of folks.
Great. That's perfect. That's what we're looking for. So thank you, Todd. I think you're the first ordinance up, so you don't get to go very far very quickly. So is there anything else you wanted to add, Todd, before moving into ordinances?
I'm good.
Okay. So we will now move into the ordinance pieces this evening. And the first one is to consider ordinance number 1554, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with First Transit Inc. of Cincinnati, Ohio for providing transit operations for Canby area transit. And that's the first reading. So Todd, you want to take it and fill us in?
Sure. So you have your staff report in there. I'm just going to ad lib here as I go along. As I mentioned, most of our employees are contract employees, and as such, we have to go out periodically to get a new contract. There are several triggers for that. In this case, the trigger was we've reached the threshold of 25% of costs, and we're adding more than 25% additional services. Because of those two, we had to go back out and do an RFP for a new contract. We issued that RFP in February, and we gave them about 4 to 5 weeks to send in their responses. We got 3 responses back, which was a little disappointing and a little surprising. I was hoping for a few more, but I think the pandemic has done quite a bit to a lot of the smaller operators. Out of those 3, we got together a group of 5 of us. That included myself, our transit coordinator. We also had the transit coordinator from Clackamas County join us. We had one of our transit advisory members join us. He's also a business owner in the city of Canby. And then we had our illustrious legal over here join us as well. And we reviewed all the proposals that were submitted. We scored them, and then we brought those 3 proposers in for interviews, and we went through the interview, including picking apart their budgets, and then we scored those interviews. At the end of the day, we felt that First Transit was the best solution for us and could provide us the best service. This does show a substantial increase in costs, and I want to explain those. First of all, everybody was roughly in the same ballpark. So this is not a one contractor's way higher than the other. What's happened is in 2018, when we added additional service, you have additional hours, you have additional operators. And then in 2019, you add Saturdays, you need more dispatch staff, and then you really need more supervising staff. So these staffs got added to the payroll of MV without really renegotiation. They were willing to take it on. but those add substantial dollars. You throw on top of that, the ATU renegotiated the contract and gave everybody a fairly substantial raise as of July 1st. I'm very supportive of that. I think the city of Canby is an expensive place to live, and it'll allow any driver who stays with us for about 5 years, they'll be making almost $26 an hour, which I think is great. But there's a cost associated with that. Our drivers are well compensated. They have good benefits. So that equates to a nearly $9 an hour increase in our costs, as most vendors hit us with. And so it's going to be a pretty heavy lift. We go almost up $150,000 from June straight to July. It's just the cost of business has gone up tremendously, and we're not alone. Many of the other cities who have gone out for RFP have seen substantial increases in their costs. So it's not unique to us. It's just the way the industry is right now. For comparison, I put in your packet what it would cost to bring it in-house. You'll look at two sets of numbers. One is if I had the same staffing that First Transit has, you can see it's substantially more expensive. And then if I cut it to the bone and did it in the bare minimum, I'm still almost as expensive as First Transit. So they're not out in left field in where their finances are. They're very close. So I don't. As much as I don't want the cost to go up, that's just where it lands. We also have somewhere out there in the digital world, First Transit has attended tonight. And so I believe we have Mark Elias and David Smith from First Transit. If you had any questions for them, they're willing to answer them. So this is just the first reading. It is a 3-year contract. We have 3 optional 1-year extensions after that. So it could carry us out to a full 6 years, though each of the 3 have to come before you for approval. Any questions?
Councilor Parker, question?
Did you say that you had somebody from the transit company there?
Yep.
Mayor, would you like to, as long as this person is made the effort to show up, would you like to ask them to invite themselves?
I think that would be appropriate to have them come up and introduce themselves and say hello. Thank you, Councilor Parker.
It's Mark Elias and David Smith. They're the top 2 right there. And the very next top one below that. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Greetings, council members. Good evening.
Greetings.
Thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate it. We look forward to working with you guys here. I think as we look forward to approving this and moving this forward, as you heard, we've got big plans for Canby area transit and growth. Growth is in front of us, and we look forward to working with your company in achieving that growth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Mark Elias. I'm the Region Vice President for First Transit in the Northwest. I live in Vancouver, Washington, so I'm fairly close to the city of Canby. I've lived there in Vancouver since 2008, so I have a lot of experience doing this type of work in Northern Oregon and in our local communities and in the Northwest. And couldn't be more excited about the opportunity to partner with the city and to assist and support with the growth. Our company also has a lot of local resources that live close by. And in fact, our proposed general manager lives in the Clackamas area and a very short commute away from Canby as well. So I think we're well positioned to support the city and just really excited to be there.
Great. Mr. Smith, did you want to say anything?
Well, I can ditto what Mark said. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. We are really excited about this contract, and you're doing great things. It's exciting to see new services like the circulator come into play. and really creating access for the community. So we're really excited about that. So thank you again.
Great. Any questions for Todd or for Mr. Elias or Mr. Smith from the council at all?
No, I just want to welcome you. I'm excited to seeing the service you provide. I know our citizens will really value it, and I appreciate that you're here with us, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
All right. I'll take a motion then for ordinance number 1554. Councilor Spoon?
I move to pass ordinance number 1554, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with First Transit Incorporated of Cincinnati, Ohio, for providing transit operations for the Canby Area Transit, also known as CAT, to come for a second reading on May 19th, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilor Bangs, thank you. Motion's been made by Councilor Spoon and seconded by Councilor Bangs to approve ordinance number 1554, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with First Transit Inc. of Cincinnati, Ohio, for providing transit operations for Canby Area Transit, or CAT, and to come up for a second reading on May 19th, 2021. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councilor President Hensley? That's 6. Anyone opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Todd, thank you for being here this evening. Gentlemen, thank you for hanging in there with us tonight and seeing how the sausage gets made. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Looking forward to an in-person meeting in the future and being able to shake everyone's hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Our next ordinance this evening is 1547, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $1,055,260 for construction of the 2021 street maintenance. And it's the second reading. So we went over this last meeting, and basically this is our contract for doing our annual street pavement projects inside of Canby. And so, Scott, anything that we should add to that conversation?
Nothing to add, Mr. Mayor. You covered it. We have no new information since the first reading, so we would just ask for your approval.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize ordinance 1547, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $1,055,260 for construction of the 2021 street maintenance.
Second.
Great. Councilor Spoon beat you to it. Councilor Varwig moved to approve ordinance number 1547, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $1,055,260 for construction of the 2021 street maintenance fee. Roll call vote.
Councilor Bangs?
Aye.
Council President Hensley?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Yes.
Councilor Spoon?
Aye.
Councilor Tibbles?
Aye.
Councilor Varwig?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes 6-0. Next on the agenda is ordinance number 1549, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Kin Technology Incorporated to continue to provide computer technical services for the city of Canby and not to exceed $132,000, and repealing ordinance number 1529. And this is also a second reading. And so, again, talked about it at our last meeting. Kin Technology has been our company that's been providing our tech services for the last couple of years. And so we've asked, and they've accepted to put forth another contract to do services for us. And then after this contract, I believe, Scott, that we will then be looking at going out for in a competitive bid process for future services, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Anything else we're leaving out on this one?
Nothing else unless the council have any questions of us. I've got Julie Blunts here to help answer any questions you may have.
Great. Any questions regarding this ordinance?
I'd just like to reiterate that I think that regardless of the dollar amount parameters that have been put around it, we go out for bid next time around, just so we can prove that we're being competitive and that we're giving everybody a fair shot at getting a contract. So with that, I move to adopt ordinance number 1549, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and interim city administrator, I don't know why it says interim and city administrator, to execute a contract with Kin Technology to continue to provide computer technical services for the city, not to exceed $132,000, and repealing ordinance number 1529.
Great. Thank you. Is there a second? Councilor Varwig? Councilor Tibbles, you have a question?
No, I was actually wanting to comment on what Councilor President Hensley said as well. I just think anytime we can give more transparency that the taxpayers are getting the most value, whether it's a dollar amount, I think there should actually be eventually something put in place to where we're saying, after, even if it's under that dollar amount, this amount of years we're putting out an RFP, just so the taxpayers can know that we're actively looking for the best value for them.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Spoon?
Yeah, thanks. I want to agree with that. We talked about it pretty at length last time, but I also was thinking since then, it might be prudent to have a conversation about, even if there's, regardless of the dollar amount, if there's a certain percentage change in the contract price, that might trigger a second look as well. So just maybe talking about different things that might trigger a new RFP that would make sure that we're getting the best value and we're actually doing our due diligence. So in addition to every 5 years, I think if there was this was a pretty substantial percentage increase, and I think anything over 15 or 20% ought to trigger an RFP. So just throwing that out there is another potential idea.
Yeah, I think that's actually, I think 15% is a good line in the sand to say, if we're going to see that kind of an increase, then we should probably look at going out for an RFP with that. So no, I think that's a reasonable request going forward. And that, I think, with almost anything we do. Great. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call vote.
Councilor Banks?
Aye.
Council President Hensley?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Yes.
Councilor Spoon?
Aye.
Councilor Tibbles?
Aye.
Councilor Barwick?
Aye.
Great. That passes 6-0. Next up is ordinance number 1550, an ordinance authorizing the city of Canby to enter into a contract with Grove, Mueller, and Swank PC for our audit services, also second reading. Again, we opened up for open bid process for our accounting firm that audits our financial department and our works there. Great discussion last meeting about this. Are there any other questions for Scott or for Julie on this matter? Okay, then I will take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 1550, an ordinance authorizing the city of Canby to enter into a contract with Grove, Mueller, and Swank PC for audit services.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve ordinance number 1550, an ordinance authorizing the city of Canby to enter into a contract with Grove, Mueller, and Swank PC for audit services. Roll call vote.
Councilor Banks?
Aye.
Councilor Hensley?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Yes.
Was that me? I couldn't hear. Aye.
Councilor Tibbles?
Aye. Wait, was that me?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor Barwick?
I heard you loud and clear. Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the city administrator, it's ordinance number 1555, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an employment contract between the city of Canby and Chief George Tro, first reading. And Scott, I'll let you take this one.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you said, this is we are requesting your consideration and approval of an employment contract with our police chief, Mr. Tro. And Chief Tro happens to be sitting here with us this evening, so we're glad he joined us tonight. The impetus here is so first of all, I think many of you or most of you probably are aware of this, but Chief Tro has been with Canby Police Department for about 24 years. He has served us very well, and was recently appointed into the position of police chief. He's in good standing and has the opportunity with PERS to retire and rehire. Under PERS law, there's PERS law that has been enacted that allows police and fire personnel the opportunity, and it's a provision that was put in place for agencies such as ourselves and other public agencies to be able to recruit and retain police and fire personnel. And so this provision is in place currently through December 31st of 2024, so about 3.5 years from now. There exists the possibility that might get extended, but we don't know that for certain. But Chief Tro is eligible to retire with PERS. And under this provision, he would like to take advantage of that opportunity. And we are supportive of that. There are a couple of advantages for the city. One is that we get to retain the services of Chief Tro, which we'd very much like to do. And two, there is a financial savings of 6% per year that as a contractor, we don't pay the employer contribution of 6% for PERS as we do if Mr. Tro were an employee. So there is a savings with this. There really is, per se, there's no disadvantage to the city whatsoever. This just allows Mr. Tro to take the opportunity, take advantage of a law that exists with PERS. The contract essentially leaves in place all of his current compensation and benefits and essentially just rolls those into his contract. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So just to make sure that I want to understand this, so providing that Chief Tro is retired and doing a hire back or work back, he's not. So come December 31st, 2024, if the law has not changed, does that mean then he has to officially retire and no longer be the chief?
Yeah, that's an excellent question.
We could still hire him on another work back for 6 more months. The way PERS is right now, yes, if it reaches that point, PERS then only allows you have to work under 6 months or you have to enter back into the system. And I doubt he wants to enter back into the system and lose his full retirement with PERS. So if they don't change it, the most we'll get him is another 6 months after that date.
So 4 years total. Okay.
Yes.
Would this require us to have 2 retirement parties for the chief?
Perhaps.
Councilor Barber, you have a question?
Yeah, just first of all, I was hoping that Chief Tro would be like our 95-year-old police chief. I was hoping he'd be here forever. But with that said, is this the same thing like what we did with Chief Smith? And he had retired from the PERS system as well. So this is basically just a longer version of what we did with Chief Smith.
Yes, essentially that is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Parker?
Well, this sort of thing has been happening quite a bit around the state. So we should be prepared for it. And secondly, I want to say what I said earlier with when we did this with Chief Smith. The advantage to this program is that we get to know in advance when our people are going to retire, and we can begin transitioning. Normally, HR rules are you can't go up to some old person and say, when are you going to retire? But given this law, we are now in a position where we can work out these transitions as we did from Smith to Tro. Although I've got to say, I really kind of like Sean's idea of a 95-year-old Chief Tro.
Mr. Mayor, I move to pass ordinance number 1555, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an employment contract between the city of Canby and Chief George Tro to a second reading on May 19th, 2021.
I will second.
Motion's been made by Councillor Hensley and seconded by Councillor Barwood to consider ordinance number 1555, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an employment contract between the city of Canby and Chief George Tro. Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Bangs, did I see you raise your hand a little bit ago?
No, I was going to do what Councillor Hensley just did.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Next ordinance is number 1552, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sewage sludge removal and repealing ordinance number 1527, our first reading. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'm going to ask Joe Lindsay to provide you a report, as this has to do with a sole source contract, which has some legalities to it. I think that would be helpful for Mr. Lindsay to explain. It's a very important service that's provided for our wastewater treatment plant. So I'll ask Mr. Lindsay to explain that to you.
Yes, hello. So you guys, those of you who've been here would be familiar with Herd Farms as the outfit that does and has been removing our wastewater sludge since 2013. When I came on here, there was a lawsuit over a sludge dryer, and that was the city's attempt to try to deal with its sludge. That didn't work out, and we were left with sludge and not knowing what to do with it. Herd Farms shows up and is really the only game in town, and we've been dealing with them ever since 2013. When we looked, specifically Dave Connor, our wastewater plant supervisor, looked for alternatives just because public contracting requires that we do. He could not find any comparable alternatives at all. This was the only, and I wrote in the staff report, this was the only privately owned facility in the state that actually treats this sludge to, that then allows it to be basically repurposed for fertilizer use. And furthermore, the only alternative that could be located was us having to actually take it clear out to Wasco County at a more expensive option. So we're left with the idea, oh no, we have to basically try to make a contract with the only person in town. I will say under public contracting rules, ORS, it's 279B 05 or 075, the sole source procurement provision does allow when there's only one particular type of service being, or one particular servicer doing one type of service, you have to make written findings. So what you'll see in the whereas, the third whereas, or fourth whereas, excuse me, is a bigger set of findings. It asks you to find that they are a sole source and meeting that legal definition based on the fact that they're the only existing options, or all the other existing options are either scarce or inefficient, namely that Herd Farms is the only private regulated facility in the state of Oregon that takes municipal sludge and treats to the Class B biosolid. And then it does mention, while the remaining option to us is to expensively and inconveniently haul the sludge to a landfill in Wasco County ourselves. The benefit of Herd Farms is that they actually show up at our plant. They have their own trucks. They load it up. They're used to doing this since 2013. And then what they did was they actually, Dave Connor was able to negotiate with them, and their usual price is actually $88. And they gave us a significant break because we were willing to sign up with them for 3 years. So you'll see that their rate is more, coming in at $74 a ton of sludge. So that is our justification. You will be finding here in writing that under the state procurement laws, this is technically a sole source for us, and that it's too onerous and too expensive to find another source to deal with this.
Our annual poopy ordinance. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1552, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sewage sludge removal and repealing ordinance number 1527.
I will second. It's a crappy job. Someone's got to do it.
Right?
Motion's been made by Councillor Hensley and seconded by Councillor Varway to consider ordinance number 1552, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sewage sludge removal and repealing ordinance number 1527. Are there any questions for Joe on this piece? Where the sole source piece being probably called out more so this time than I think the last time, because we've been able to confirm that there is no other hauler of our biosolids. Any discussion?
Did we lose the city again?
Looks like it.
We did.
We should probably wait then until they return.
Or are we just broadcasting to ourselves?
Apparently.
Okay.
Brian, you want to text Melissa, or do you want me to?
Let's make sure that we don't, if we are still broadcasting, that we keep that in check.
We do still have 2 attendees listed in our participant list.
Well, one's Gordon.
Yeah, the city's not listed as an attendee right now, and it usually is, I think. Oh, there it is. They're back.
There they are.
You're back.
And they're back.
Okay. So for the city, just to catch you guys up, we're done. We completed the meeting. We'll see you next week. So the motion's been made by Councillor Hensley, Councillor Varwig. There's no questions, further discussion. All those in favor?
Can I ask first, is Gordon back on? Are we broadcasting?
Gordon was on the whole time.
All right, then yes. Sorry.
Okay. Gordon just texted me and said, yes, he's there.
Okay.
All right. So all those in favor, I see 6 hands. Anyone opposed? All right. We are now going to remove more sludge. Perfect. Item G this evening is ordinance number 1553, an ordinance approving 2 intergovernmental agreements, IGAs, between Clackamas County and the city of Canby, permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for portions of North Locust Street, North Maple Street, North Redwood Street, and South Redwood Street, both in and out of city limits. First reading. Scott, I'm excited about this one, sir. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am as well delighted to be presenting this to you. I know this has been a long time coming and has been in the works for quite some time. So we are presenting to you for approval this evening, actually 2 IGAs, but it's being bundled together under the one ordinance. They're essentially partner contracts that both need to be approved with the county. So this is an agreement with Clackamas County to transfer these county roads over to the city. The roads that we're talking about, or portions of roads, are, again, just to reiterate one more time, North Locust Street, North Maple Street, North Redwood Street, and South Redwood Street. This provides, this eliminates confusion for the city of Canby, and it provides us efficiencies of our maintenance and our service to our Canby residents. It allows us to bring these roads up to city standards and just essentially provide better roads for our community. With these agreements, with the transfer, we receive a total of $781,865 from the county to do the improvements. Now, that doesn't cover the entirety of what will need to be done, but it does get us a long ways there. I want to commend Mr. Jerry Nalzine for all of his great work on this. He's been working diligently with myself, with Clackamas County, and getting this thing hammered out. Even got them to kind of sweeten the pot a little bit. So it's been a good thing, but I do want to give credit to Mr. Nalzine, and he is actually here this evening to help answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I will just ask for your approval of this, and be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm muted. I know. I just wanted to comment on this real quick. This is far too long overdue. I'm glad that we've been able to finally get these roads in our hands to be able to work with. My one question, I guess, for Jerry, since he's there, and is knowing that those roads have been county roads. They are a 2-inch overlay is a Band-Aid, I think, on some of those roads. If we determine how much of these roads we're going to have to reconstruct to city standards?
Yeah, I have all that information put together. I guess I should have probably had that tonight, but I can sure get that to you. But the one thing I do want to say is we got a really good deal out of them on this go around. We got them to throw in all the ADA ramp improvements with it, plus the $110 a ton of asphalt, which usually the going rate is about $70 to $80 a ton. So, but some of them, I have it all figured out, the cost to upgrade these roads. Some of them are a win because development will improve them. Others are going to cost us more. But as Scott said, it is going to cost us some money to upgrade them. But the good news is if you approve this, South Redwood gets paved this year.
Well, I think Councillor Bangs and myself live on and use that road often. So thank you for that. We've always known that this was going to be a piece that was going to be added dollars for us to bring and repair. But again, the adage has been they're ours. It's up to us, and it's I'm drawing a blank on the word that I'm looking for, but basically it's us setting the course of what we want to do for our roads in our community. So good work, Jerry. Nice job. Councilor Parker.
Well, I want to give thanks to Mayor Brian Hodson and Councillor Hensley for working on this for a decade. When I first got on the city council, one of the first things that citizens mentioned to me was that we had some crappy roads. And whenever I would ask them, it would be county roads. And then I'd have to explain to them why we had county roads in the city, and it went nowhere. And finally, after a number of years, Tracy and Brian and I and the others on the council said, you know, this stalemate between us and Clackamas County does nobody any good. And it may cost us some money in bringing these roads up to city standards, but we're going to do it. And I'm really proud of us. This is a monumental thing to do. It is also something to show you how a legacy can follow a council 30 years in advance. That there was a time when the city council of Canby allowed developers to jump the city limits and not have to bring the roads up to standards. That the city council was trying to be pro-business at the time. And now 30 to 40 years later, we are having to fix that generosity to developers. So for most people, this is going to be kind of an insignificant thing. But as Brian says, we're finally bringing the roads into our responsibility. We're going to get it up to standards. Jerry, I know it's not going to be easy because there's some roads that you simply do not have the right of way to do everything you need to do. Do the best you can.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. I appreciate that. Councilor Varwick?
Thank you. Yeah, great work, Jerry. I know that's been something we've been desiring for a long time. I know you've been working hard to get that done, and appreciate you getting more money out of the county for that. I know the question is going to be asked now is how long? How long can they until they're done, and can you start tomorrow?
Well, yeah, we could put something together for you on that. I know, Mr. Mayor, we have all the prices for what it's going to cost to upgrade to today's prices. If you want to request that to Mr. Archer, we can get that to all of you guys. And then as far as a CIP for that, we can get something together for that also. But we're starting July 1 if this is approved.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. I think it was Councilor Hensley, then Spoon, then Tibbles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jerry, for all your hard work. Thank you, Councilor Parker, for recognizing the fact that this has been a long time coming. We've worked on this for a long time. And I'm excited to move to pass ordinance number 1553, an ordinance approving 2 intergovernmental agreements between Clackamas County and the city of Canby, permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for portions of North Locust Street, North Maple Street, North Redwood Street, South Redwood Street, both in and out of the Canby city limits, for a second reading to come up May 19th, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to consider approve ordinance number 1553, an ordinance approving 2 intergovernmental agreements between Clackamas County and the city of Canby, permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for portions of North Locust Street, North Maple Street, North Redwood Street, and South Redwood Street, both in and out of the city limits. Councilor Spoon, you had comment or question?
Yeah, but I think Jordan was before me. Jordan can go.
Okay. Councilor Tibbles.
Thank you, Councilor Spoon. I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to say, as a newer councilor walking into a project that has this much work to it, I know when I first heard about it, I was reluctant, and it was because there were a lot of things. Why can't we get the county to do more? And where is this money going to come from? And I just want to compliment staff completely and entirely on this, because throughout this process, they've answered that. They've reassured me on the budget side of things, and they also fought and got a better deal. So I think that, sometimes coming as a new counselor, probably Chris can say, we'll come in with questions that are like, well, that's kind of a wrecking ball question, but I just want to applaud when great work has been done, and the concerns of the council have been addressed by staff. So I just wanted to give that appreciation.
Thanks, Jordan. Councilor Spoon.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's just a love fest for Jerry here, but I want to echo those, all of the compliments, but particularly when I came on council, 4.5 years ago, it felt like we were making no progress on getting roads online. And the work he's done to build the relationships at the county in the last year, we have brought so much online that we have been talking about for a decade plus. and it's happening in pretty quick order. And I'm just really impressed with the relationship building and how much he's been able to accomplish in the last year with this project that seemed like it was at a stalemate for a decade. So just great work, Jerry, and the rest of staff. I know Jerry doesn't work alone, and I know he doesn't like the accolades necessarily. His whole team is great. The staff is great, but he's really a workhorse for moving our projects forward. And he deserves all the applause in the world tonight. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Counselor. All right. So any other comments or no? Great. So motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? All right. I see 6 hands. Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Council. Moving into Mayor's business, I will be quick. Parks and Rec, nothing new right now. We have a meeting coming up later in the month. I will just say I want everyone 2 words, bocce ball, 2 more words, Wait Park, just something to ponder. The Metro Mayors Consortium has submitted a letter to the state legislature about finding another way to fund highway projects other than tolling. So the Metro Mayors Consortium is just that. It's a consortium of mayors in the Portland metropolitan area. And so the group has kindly asked the state legislature to sharpen their pencils and find another way other than tolling. Obviously, much more to come on that in the future. C4, so the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee will meet tomorrow night, so I'll report next meeting. The City of Canby prayer breakfast was supposed to be for tomorrow on the National Day of Prayer. Unfortunately, if you've not heard, it has been canceled. And that was back last week when we went in the governor's recent. See the train whistle. There we go. So, tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer. Please just take a moment to pray for our city, our county, our state, and our national elected officials. We appreciate it when that happens. And finally, our first budget meeting is Thursday, May 13th. Council should have your budgets, and you should be poring over them with magnifying glasses and find sharpened pencils. Really, that's some of it, but Julie and Scott have done a lot of great work on this budget packet. If you've not a chance to leaf through it and read some of the content already, it's a very well done presentation for us for our first meeting. The second meeting will be on May 20th, and then the third meeting, if need be, will be May 27th. Those are my pieces for this evening. We're going to Councilor comments and liaison reports, and I will go around my screen. So Councilor Spoon, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our transit director, Todd Wood, did a much better report on CAT than I ever could have done, so I will not try and improve upon it.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Tibbles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing, I have my liaison meetings later this month, so I will defer to the next meeting, but I just want to send a thank you to everyone who came out for the Canby Woodchuck event, both the volunteers and the citizens. It was a good example of, why we want to have, why this community and my wife raved about it growing up here. Just so many people who came by, whether it's just encouraging us or saying, hey, I have a neighbor, I'm not sure, they're kind of elderly and I think they have wood stove. Can I bring some wood to them? Just always thinking about other people, just those interactions that we had. It was really special. And I just want to applaud the citizens, the people who helped spread the word, anyone involved in it. And I just appreciate the entire community.
Thanks, Councilor Tibbles, and thank you to you and your wife for organizing it and leading that. That was fantastic. So thank you. Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My liaison report will be next time as my meetings haven't happened yet. But as Councilor Tibble's already alluded, I actually want to express my appreciation for him in spearheading that event. The Woodchuck event was a very soggy Saturday, but we all had a great time helping our community. Our public works team are rock stars. Our community volunteers are rock stars. I love the Canby way, and I just want to thank everybody involved in that event. It was what Canby's about. So thanks again to everyone. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Varwick?
Yeah, for the sake of time, I'll save my report for next meeting as well.
All right, thank you. Councilor Bangs?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will say to start out before I forget that if you ever put together a resolution opposing those tolls, I'd tell you what, I'm right behind you on that. I'd totally sign that. I'd like to see that resolution come up. The library committee meets next week. I'll have nothing to say about that till next meeting. The school committee or the school board meets all the time. Just Monday, they had the first budget committee meeting. It was a period of great joy for me because at one point I was a liaison on that budget committee, and it was a tedious and painful job. And then ironically, that was the same day that Judy sent me the budget for the city now. Let's see, at the school district, we have a shortage of substitute teachers, which we predicted in the fall. And we're not really sure how to get around that. Graduation is coming up. It's June 11th. I think it's the best attended individual event in Canby. Normally, it will not be this year. Graduation's either going to be some kind of limited in-person in the stadium graduation where each graduate gets 2 tickets, like mom and dad or however you want to slice that, seated, distanced away from each other wearing masks, or if we cannot do that, a virtual type of graduation like we had last year, which was kind of lame. But we're going to make a call on that, I guess, May 20th or 21st, depending on what we can get away with doing. Let's see. Along with those other events, prom is this weekend on Saturday. Kids are not allowed to be in groups of larger than 6. So they're going to be groups of 6, like a group. The kids have to put together their own groups, only seniors. And then they're going to get toured through the high school hallways, which are decorated. And then they're going to get little stations where they take pictures. And then they'll have, I think, 15 minutes to dance with those 6. And then they're out of the building. During our meeting tonight, my wife and daughter got back from prom shoot shopping. So that's what we've been doing at the Bangs house lately is prom. And that's about it. I'll have a report on the library committee next week.
Thank you, sir. And last but not least, Councilor Parker.
Prom. Okay. Jordan, you and I come from different perspectives on politics, but I have to say, I really respect you and your wife. Leadership takes many forms. One of them is just going out and doing things. I walked past Waite Park and you were lifting up 40-pound pieces of wood. I've got to respect that. Mayor, I don't have anything else on my liaison reports, but you were talking about the budgets. I asked for a physical copy and I haven't gotten one yet. So maybe staff can figure that one out.
It is on the back counter at City Hall. I believe there's a copy there. I think, so that's where I had mine picked up, and I think there's a copy for you there. Perfect. City Administrator business and staff reports.
Very quickly, we a few quick announcements for you. First, by the end of this week, we will have installed 100 flower baskets in our downtown. The flower baskets are going in, and we'll install 100 of those. And then next week, we will have the planting of all the flowers in the flower nodes around downtown. Couple of project things for you real quick. Speaking of all the good work with Mr. Nelzine and the road stuff, we're also working on a project that was funded by the county through the Community Development Block Grant Program to install or replace 20 ADA ramps in the city. And I won't go into details, but we're putting in 20 new ADA ramps because of a grant we received from the county and Mr. Nelzine's efforts to work with them on that. Just that so that nobody should think that we've forgotten about this or that it's not happening. The Quiet Zone and the Arch project, you council approved that a while back. Though there has been no physical construction yet, I assure you there is work going on. The contractor has been given notice to proceed. There is some right of entry agreement work with the railroad that is being completed, and the contractor is awaiting that. And once they have that, they can begin the physical work downtown. We expect that to be in the near future. The Walnut or the Industrial Park to 99 extension, there's also work proceeding on that. We have been working with the property owners with the what we are looking at as a preferred road alignment. And we have a cooperative ownership group, which is a huge hurdle. We're in the process of getting appraisals done. We're nearing completion on that, which then allows us to move through the final negotiations and then continue steps forward there. So that's very much in progress. And then lastly, we just received word recently that our AFSCME union group ratified the proposed collective bargaining agreement. So it is that was a big accomplishment, and it is ratified as to what was presented to you, council, at your the last executive session. We will bring that forward for final approval at your next council meeting, but that was a big accomplishment. So that'll do for tonight, unless you have any questions.
I believe Councillor Spoon has a question.
Yes, I'm sorry. My audio went in and out there for a minute. So if you address this, I apologize. I feel like I'm living in the never-ending construction project. Do we know when Ivy Street's going to be done? People are asking, inquiring minds.
We'll take advantage of Jerry Nelzine being here tonight and put him on.
That's why I thought it was a good time to ask. I was like, as long as Jerry's there.
Yeah, they asked for a punch list earlier this week. We went out, did a walkthrough. Spencer actually did. And there's a pretty healthy list, as you can see, with stuff to finish on that. So we're hoping by the end of next week to be done with all that. But this has been, so yeah, the striping, we're not going to get the striping done until we get, we decided to do the white striping ourselves in-house. So we got to get our striper going and stuff like that. That'll be the finish of it. But you should see the end of construction out there for here in the next, hopefully, 2 weeks.
Okay. I wave at the construction workers every morning when I take my dog out. So I feel like they're family now, but it will be nice for that project to be complete. Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thanks for being patient with us on that.
Thanks, Jerry.
Any other questions for Mr. Archer this evening? All right. Second opportunity for citizen input. Melissa, do we have anybody that wants to provide input?
You're not.
Great. Action review.
Right. You have approved the consent agenda, approved resolution number 1347, adopted ordinance numbers 1547, 1549, and 1550, and passed ordinance numbers 1554, 1555, 1552, and 1553 to second readings on May 19th.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Can't necessarily take a motion to adjourn right now because the city council will be moving into an exec session here to discuss the performance evaluation of a public officer. So I will take a motion to move into exec session.
Mr. Mayor, I move into exec session per order LRS 192.660, parent 2, parent I, performance of evaluation of public officer.
Thank you for that. Looks like Councilor Varwig has got the second. All those in favor of moving into an exec session? Anyone opposed? That's passes 6-0. So we'll move in. Let me read this blurb real quick. Exec sessions are closed to the public. Representatives of the news media and designated staff may attend executive sessions. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No executive session may be held for the purpose of taking final action or making any final decisions. So with that being stated, council, we will leave this Zoom and go to the other exec piece. Do people need to take a small break? Okay.